Automation. What is it? Automation. Sounds like something to do with your car, doesn't it? Well, it's not. Well, not really. To automate something is to make something automatic. And in the context of information systems, what we're doing is we're making something automatic by taking work that was previously done by people performing processes or procedures and having it performed by hardware following procedures encoded in software. Okay, so within the 5-component framework of information systems of hardware, software, data, procedures, and people, we're taking something from the procedures and people side and moving it over to the hardware and software side. Okay. So why do we do this? There's a couple of reasons. One, computers make great slaves. They work long hours, they don't get tired, you don't have to pay them health insurance. Okay. They're very, very consistent. They do exactly what you tell them to do. So if you have a job that has to be done the exact same way every single time, and you need to do it maybe a whole lot of times, then this sounds like a good job for a computer. Okay, for example, if I asked you to add up 5 numbers, that's a fairly routine process. Addition never really changes. Okay? And you could probably sit down and say, okay, I'll do that, and you add up 5 or 10 numbers. But suppose I said I want you to add up 100 numbers. Okay? Then all of a sudden this is going to take you a bit longer. And there's a possibility for error because as you're holding all of those numbers in your head or trying to consolidate all of your sums, you're introducing room for error. Now when you're adding up 100 numbers, or 1,000 numbers, or 10,000 numbers, you don't want to be making errors, and you don't want to have to pay somebody to spend several hours carrying numbers over to complete this process. Now this is a very simple use case of why we might want to automate something. But it's not just adding numbers, something we automate by allowing a computer to add the numbers that we enter into a spreadsheet. Okay. How else can we automate something? Payment processing is another excellent example of the benefits of automating. And it also illustrates a process that sometimes you want to keep part of it manual or part of it being performed by humans and part of it being automatic. Okay? So how is this done? A company receives a purchase order for a product, and then they verify that the customer has credit for this purchase order, and they ship the items that have been ordered. Then they send the customer an invoice for the items that were shipped. The customer has received the goods and verifies that it received the proper quantity and proper items as described, and they receive the invoice and say, we're going to submit payment. So they send the invoice back with a payment, maybe a check or some sort of voucher or electronic payment. Okay. The accounts receivable office looks at the payment and matches it to the outstanding invoice and verifies that the payment is for the amount invoiced and for the proper thing, and credits that account for that purchase order with the amount of the payment. Okay. Fairly straightforward process. Anyone who's been through accounting should understand. Okay. Now, where's the room for automation? For the most part, people make payments in full for the invoices they receive. So wouldn't it be great to be able to receive the payment and automatically apply it to the purchase order or into the invoice? The answer is yes. So how do we do this? Well, we can do this because more and more businesses are processing their payments through what's called electronic data transfer, which means no checks are being sent. The money is all being transferred electronically. So an electronic version of the invoice is sent out, an electronic version of the payment comes back in response to that invoice. And so the system can now compare the invoice with the amount received with the purchase order and match all of these up together. If everything matches, it automatically credits and updates the appropriate accounts in the system. If there's not a match, then it flags it for more review and sends it on to a human being. Okay, so if one of the numbers don't match, then it's no longer a routine process, and some decision needs to be made. Perhaps the customer is adjusting their payment because some of the goods were defective and needs a credit, or perhaps they need to make payment arrangements, or perhaps they overpaid the amount of the invoice. So at these points, we need to interrupt the process so that it's no longer automatic. It becomes a semi-automated process that is reviewed by human beings. Okay, so that's automation. Okay, some processes are too complex to be really automated, so they're largely manual. Now, in today's economy, even processes that we consider to be manual are frequently aided by automated computer processes. Okay, and we can look at some of those in future videos. So as we're looking at processes, we want to consider that some processes are going to be manual, largely done by people following well-defined procedures. Other processes may be semi-automated, and other processes will be fully automated.